The question of Métis recognition dominated the discussion as the Chiefs of Ontario annual assembly continued today in the city.
Other key items on the agenda included clean drinking water and the enforcement of First Nations law. Lee Noonan has more.
Federal and provincial recognition of Métis communities across the province is of deep concern to the Chiefs of Ontario, who say the rights of First Nations to their lands and resources are being threatened by claims they say are illegitimate.
Some of their members may have Indigenous ancestry, in their family lines, but that doesn't make them Métis. That perhaps would make them, have some lineage to our communities. And really, at the end of the day, if they're looking for recognition, then they need to look to those communities to see if they are accepted as their people or not, because we are the nations, and the Métis Nation of Ontario is not a nation.
Both Matawa and Treaty 3 tribal councils have passed resolutions within the past year opposing federal recognition of the Métis within their territories. And aside from the recognition itself, McLeod says there's been a lack of consultation with First Nations.
These decisions are passing legislation are trying to be rammed through without any debate, without any consultation to the actual Section 35 rights holders in this area.
Another major issue for the Ontario Chiefs is law enforcement. Under the shadow of a crisis in First Nations police funding, they want to see legislation that would create a mandate for provincial and First Nations officers to enforce the laws and bylaws passed by band councils. They also want the power to enforce bylaws through ticketing and to hire their own prosecutors.
There has to be a long-term commitment federally and provincially to ensure that First Nations can enact bylaws, enforce those bylaws, and adjudicate those bylaws.
The ongoing issue of safe drinking water was another major item before the Assembly. There are 23 long-term drinking water advisories still in effect in 20 Ontario First Nations. 3/4 of those communities are in northwestern Ontario.
We all agree, I think, that standards are necessary for water treatment plants to ensure the health and safety of the people that drink water from that service. But again, there has to be the funding to adequately operate and maintain it.
The Assembly will be wrapping up here on Thursday with a Q&A session with Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller, who will be making a virtual appearance. Lee Noonan, TBT News.